Hey, what's up everyone? Tedrick85 here, and today I'm making this video because today happens to be a very special day for me. Today is my 30th birthday, which you probably figured by my screen name, 85 is the year I was born, 1985. So I thought it'd be fun to make this top 10 list of my favorite movies that came out in 1985 celebrating their 30 years on Earth too, but I should stress before I begin the countdown that this is my top 10 most favorite movies out of the year, not what I think is the top 10 best. So, I just want to clear that out of the way, and I hope you guys enjoy the countdown. Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And anybody that's at least a little familiar with the 1980s should know the name Pee-wee Herman, who had a TV show out for children named Pee-wee's Playhouse, which inspired this movie. And I gotta admit, even right now at age 30, I still enjoy watching this movie. I think it has a lot of funny parts in it. It certainly takes me down the trip, down the nostalgia and that. And I also like some of the parts in there too, especially a part where he gets picked up by Large Marge, which I still don't understand why people get freaked out about that. Come on, folks. She's not that scary. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid, I actually laughed at that part, but oh well, I think I'm part of a minority of that, but still. For those of you that enjoy Pee-wee Herman or Pee-wee's Playhouse or in that show, should like this movie, and even if you don't, I think it's a fun family movie to watch. Rambo, First Blood Part 2. This is actually my favorite Rambo movie, and this is even more so than the newer Rambo movie, which, I gotta say, the newest Rambo movie isn't as bad as what people say it is, but anyway, going back to what I was saying before about Rambo First Blood Part 2, this is really the one that I really see as John Rambo, and I think this is one of Sylvester Stallone's best performances, as he blew apart a whole bunch of Vietnamese people in order to rescue POWs and that. And if you're a fan of 80s action movies, then definitely give this movie a look, because like any other Rambo movie, I think this one is the pinnacle of the franchise. Police Academy 2, Their First Assignment. Now, I know this movie got lots of negative reviews, especially among movie critics, but as a fan of the Police Academy movies, I think this is my personal favorite. And the big reason for that has to be Bobcat Goldthwait, who plays Zed, which is the leader of this obnoxious gang that's first seen in the movie. And I just think the guy is hilarious in it, and it's definitely, he serves as the perfect foil, especially against the likes of like Steven Guttenberg, who plays Mahoney, and people like Tackleberry and stuff like that. And despite the negative reviews, this is the Police Academy movie I find myself watching the most. And I can't help but get a few belly laughs, especially whenever I watch Bobcat Goldthwait on there. Mask. This is one of those movies I can't help but be inspired by it. And also, it's one of those movies, yeah, it's a tearjerker, but at the same time, though, it's one of those movies that make you root for the main character. In this case, the main character is played by Eric Stoltz, who ends up playing a kid named Rocky, a boy who suffered from craniodiaphyseal dysplasia, also known as Lionitis. And Cher was also in it, which she ended up receiving a Golden Globe nomination for the performance, but between her and Eric Stoltz, it really drove the message of the movie home. And it's definitely one of those movies in which, if you're into inspirational movies and that, definitely give this movie a watch, because it's definitely one of the best movies I can think of that came from the 1980s. Reanimator. I've always been a fan of body horror movies, such as The Thing and Hellraiser, so it shouldn't be of any surprise that for those of you that know me, know that I would have this on my list. And I just like not only were the special effects good in it, but I also like how it was written, but I also have to praise Jeffrey Combs' performance in that movie as Dr. West. It's very chilling, but yet very, very well done on his part. And it's just one of those movies that I just found myself watching too, and I'm not really all that big of a horror fan, like it's not one of my favorite genres, even though I don't really mind it. But this is one of those horror movies that I find myself watching on Halloween time, and I really enjoy it now as much as I did back then, and I really enjoy the amount of work and special effects that the creators of this film put into it. Once Bitten. Now, I'm not the least bit shy to admit that I'm not really into vampire movies, but I thought this one was especially good. I thought it was very well written and also very funny. It also happens to make one of Jim Carrey's earlier movies. Combine that with some appearances by Cleavon Little, who was the sheriff from Blazing Saddles, and this actually turns out to be a pretty decent movie, and a movie that I find myself watching again from time to time. Rocky IV. And yes, this is the second Sylvester Stallone movie that I have in my top 10 list. And much like with Rambo First Blood Part 2 with the Rambo series, I personally think that Rocky IV is my favorite out of the series and the big reason for that is because I think it has more of a storyline to it, and it actually gives more character into Rocky Balboa. And of course the big conflict in this movie was him trying to get past Apollo Creed's death at the hands of Drago rather, and going up and fighting him, which Drago was this big, strong Soviet guy, undefeated in that, and just to see Rocky not only go up against him, but beat him. And I just think it's such an inspiring story, and I think that's why this movie resonates with me among all the other Rocky movies. Weird Science. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that feels that not only is this movie funny, but it's downright awesome too. Especially when you get the premise of the movie about two kids wanting to make the perfect girl, and things just going wrong. And as a matter of fact, this movie did so well and got such a fan following, that it happened to spawn a TV series during the 1990s, which I have to admit I wasn't a big fan of the show, but it really did not put a bad taste in my mouth in this movie. Anthony Michael Hall, Bill Paxton, and Kelly LeBrock are just some of the people that made this movie worth watching. And it also happens to have a cameo appearance by Robert Downey Jr. for any of you Iron Man fans out there, so if you're definitely into 80s culture, I would give this movie a look. You won't regret it. Commando. This is probably my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie outside of the Terminator movies and Predator. It's one of those movies in which, yeah, it's kind of silly and it fits into every kind of stereotypical 1980s action movie. But this movie has such a charm about it, I just can't help but love it. And I like it so much, and that's why it's so high in this countdown. But yeah, between the action scenes and especially Arnold's one-liners in that movie, I can't help but really enjoy this one, and that's why it's number 2 on my list. Now it's time for some honorable mentions, and the first one I'm going to discuss is Back to the Future, which I know a lot of you are going to watch this right now and like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me this isn't number 1? Remember, this is my top 10 favorite movies of 1985, not the top 10 best. And I gotta be honest with you, even though I think this movie is good, I just don't like it as much as all the other ones in my top 10 list. And another film that I'm gonna put in that same category is The Goonies, which, don't get me wrong, I liked the movie, I thought it was good, but I just didn't like it as much as all the films in my top 10 list. And on a personal note, high school kind of ruined this movie for me a bit, but that's a long story and I won't get into that. But another movie I'm going to put in my honorable mentions list is Fright Night, which, like I said in my Once Bitten part, I'm not a real big fan of vampire movies, but like Once Bitten, I think this is one of those few vampire movies that work for me. And I thought Chris Sarandon did a fantastic performance in this movie as well. But again, I just did not like this enough for it to be on my top 10 favorite list. And the last movie I should mention is Real Genius. I was really close to putting this in the top 10 list just simply because of how thought-provoking it is. But looking back through all the movies that came out throughout 1985, I just don't think I liked it enough for it to be my top 10, even though I thought Val Kilmer did a fantastic job in that movie. The Breakfast Club. And I gotta admit that whenever I came up with the idea to do this video, I was gonna have this movie on top of my list. And I know a lot of critics out there say that this movie is the quintessential 1980s movie. It's not hard to see why, because this movie is absolutely teeming with 80s culture. And the big reason why this movie is number one on my list is not only do I find all the characters to be relatable and I can see people relating to them, but I also like some of the topics that they have in it, which are very much relevant now as what they were back then, including peer pressure, drugs, and even depression and suicide and that. And it's definitely one of those movies that I think, if you're an 80s buff, you should definitely see it. And I just think it's just one of those movies that's gonna live on no matter what generation you're in and that. So, and it's definitely my favorite John Hughes movie too, even more so than Uncle Buck and Weird Science. So if you haven't got to watch this movie yet, please do so, because it's gonna be time well spent. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for this countdown. So, thank you guys so much for watching this, and I will see you guys again next time.